How's that? We're just going to go live. Hey, everybody. Captain Tommy Scoville, and you were on the lifeboat. I don't know if anybody will be here. This has literally been the most difficult feed to set up. Speakers, Yeti microphone. Okay, so here's the deal. I can use a computer, but I can't tell you why a computer does what it does. You understand what I'm saying? Like, there are people who can put gas in a car and they can drive a car and they can, talk about things, but they don't have a clue how to make, they couldn't work on a car. They couldn't do anything on a car. And that's me with a computer. I have a sneaky suspicion that this is not broadcasting to anybody. Well, so I am one of those individuals. I can use a computer because the computer is set up and you know that if you do this, this, and this is what happens. So this morning I come down at 4:00 to set up the live feed. And as I've told people in the past, I run on it. Sorry. I heard squirrel. Hold on, people. I'm going to lose. This is unreal. Squirrel, nut zipper. Sorry, peeps. So I'm a creature of habit. I am a creature of routine, and I'm a creature of habit. So I got up and I came down and I set this thing up at 4:00 in the morning. And what I do at 4:00 in the morning is I open the door to the garage. The squirrel goes outside in the garage. I bust open a bag of treats. I let her back in. I give her a few treats. And by then the live feed is set up. I'm on my second cup of coffee and life is good. Squirrel comes and walks across this board while I'm trying to get the thumbnail put up. And all of a sudden, nothing is the same. I can't find, I really mean that. Like, I have the ability to cut and paste. Like, that's about the extent of my computer skills. So I'm trying to find the files that have all of these things in them, like the thumbnail stuff, and I can't find any of it. I can't even find, so I type in StreamYard and I try to go through it without heading to an app. People, when I tell you that this entire process took me an hour, well, it did. It's 10 after 5, and I usually fire this thing up at 4:30. Well, it is what it is. It is what it is. I'm not going to lie to anybody here. I have been cursing like a banshee for the last hour. The fact that all of this equipment is not in pieces on the floor is an act of God. It has nothing to do with me and remaining calm and all of those things that I tell people. I am so bad at the things that I advise other people to do. My ability to control, and before you think that I don't ever point this at people. You know what I mean? I'm not mean but boy, oh boy, the frustration when there is something that I do not have the ability to do. And when, you know what, people, it comes back to the same thing, right? Here's something that makes me feel stupid. That's really what it comes down to. Here's something that I now am of the firm belief that I'm not a dumb guy, but when something pops back that makes me feel that way, then I'm probably reverting back to to times in the past that this has plagued me. And yeah. Well, sorry, peeps. We definitely got off to a late start, and I hate doing that. I really do. I am a bit of a freak when it comes to being punctual. So we've done 1 million, and I'm not exaggerating, maybe slightly. We've done, if you pick subjects that we've done more than any other, nuts and bolts is probably one of the ones that we use often, right? Or sometimes we'll call it toolbox or whatever, but it's always the same thing. All right, sorry. I was reading the other day, and this nuts and bolts is going to be a little different than the ones we've done in the past. I was reading the other day, and it was just statistic stuff. I was just running through statistics because I find them fascinating. And I think that, especially in recovery, if you pay attention to them, there's a story there that you kind of have to coax out of the numbers. But if you're able to do that, then you've got a much better idea of why sobriety or the inability to get sober are the way they are. So I'm reading all of these statistics, and there's one that jumps out more than any, and it happens every time. It's the statistic on people who believe in God and their ability to remain sober versus people that do not have a belief in a higher power, and that would be any higher power. I'm not. I'm using God in the terms of any way you want to use them, right? And I started thinking about that, and it makes a hell of a lot of sense to me. And I'm not telling anybody here that they need to believe in anything other than the fact that they're not their best person right now. I want you to believe that there is a better version of you inside of you, especially if you're still using. If you're still getting high, you need to come to the belief that you can live on this planet without getting high. That there really is a better you, and that you can get that better you. Those sometimes are a real tall order for people that have spent the last decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, whatever the case may be, getting wrecked all day, every day. If you're one of those people that drink, a few fifths a day, then coming to the belief that you can change that, that's a tall order. That's a very difficult thing for some people. And, well, it's a very difficult thing for all people. But for some, it's overwhelming. The ability to believe in something that you cannot see, right? That's faith. And if one has a faith in a higher power that they cannot see, I think that it makes sense why those people have an easier time believing something else that they cannot see. Now, I'm not discounting that there really is a God out there and that God does miracles. I watched one last week. I'm a very firm believer. But if you're not, that's okay. But you have to believe in your ability to get clean the way others believe in God. You have to have the drive, something internal that drives you, so that this isn't just, every once in a while, like I just take, 10, 20 days off. I try. And then when I realize that it's way too hard, I just go back to it. Because deep down, you don't believe that you can do it. Well, I'm glad that you're still sober in the afternoon, full of hope. Congratulations. Full of hope's going, through a tough time. And sometimes that's, that's the kind of stuff when I was in my very early sobriety, I remember, I'm not joking, people, looking at the clock, especially during the holidays. The holidays in prison, I guess if you're one of those guys that, is a big rough convict and, yeah, I dug prison, I love that stuff. I guess if you're one of those, but I'm not that guy. So when the holiday seasons rolled around, I missed my family, and I missed everything about the holidays. I missed the music. I missed all of it. And there's nothing in there. Like there's no Christmas in prison isn't really Christmas in prison, you know? Like they give you in the federal government, you get a bag of things. It's like a plastic bag this big. It's got like 4 different kinds of potato chips in it, a few candies and some special kind of coffee or something. But the spirit of Christmas and the family and all of that is just gone. So from Thanksgiving to January 2nd, and I've talked about this on the boat before, but from Thanksgiving to January 2nd is hell. Hell. So that first year, I stopped using in June. And by September, I was feeling pretty good about myself. I thought, you know what? I pretty much got this licked. But when the holidays came around, I had a digital watch because they didn't sell analog watches. You couldn't have a mechanical watch. But I would sit there and stare at the digital watch as the counter was going. 48, 49, 50, 51, 52. I'm not kidding you. And then I would watch that clip to the next minute, and I'd think I got through one. And all I was trying to do was hold on until they locked me in that cell. And once I would get in there and they would lock that door and I knew I couldn't come back out until the following morning at 5 a.m., an amazing thing would happen. I would relax. Isn't that bizarre? I'd stop thinking about it. I would relax. But I know, full of hope. That was worse than the prison sentence itself. I mean it. We joked about that in there all the time, but there was not much worse. I will give credit where credit is due before somebody yells at me. Everybody who owns a watch collection has a G-Shock, and they tip their hat to G-Shock because what they did for watches and what they were able to build for the price that they built it for was absolutely remarkable. There, I said it. However, I am not going to wear them out here. And that Jesus spoke to her, and she said that she found well, that very well may be a sign there, Paul. People. I know people that say miracles don't, no longer. They'll say, well, if miracles still happens, it would be easier to. Miracles happen every day, but people don't look for them. So I'm not lecturing anybody on anything. I'm just telling you that you need to develop a belief in who you are. That is the first nuts and bolts stuff, right? We talk about a 3-step program here at the Lifeboat. And the first step is listing all of the reasons that you want to get sober. And you know what? If love of yourself is one of those first things that you list, I think you're probably well on your way to the finish line. Most people do not. I have looked at a hell of a lot of first pages. List all the reasons you want to get sober. It is really rare that somebody writes, because I love me. You know what? I've never read that. It's not really rare. I've never once seen somebody. Now, I've seen people write things about their own health, right? Or they wish they were back to work, but even that's rare. Even that is really rare. And the reason is we feel pretty bad about ourselves when the time comes to first, start to, when it comes time to get sober for the very first time, we're usually not in love with ourselves anymore. In fact, I hated myself. That's why I did what I did. I was able to turn off that feeling of hate for 8 to 10 hours at a time if I did a big enough blast of dope. At least that was in the beginning. Towards the end, I just basically had to continue to do it nonstop. And I'm not even exaggerating. I mean, it became as much about the action and all of the ritual of doing what I was doing. That was just as important as anything else. And if you took a day of 16 hours of being awake, eight of those hours would have been spent in a parking lot waiting for somebody to deliver the medicine that I was going to stick in my arm or up my nose or however I was going to do it that day. And then the rest of the time would be divided up between, playing with this stuff to get it into my body, or laying there with my eyes closed for a few minutes of peace. It's a terrible existence. If I went through all of the things that people have asked me on the lifeboat, because there are recurring questions that people ask me all the time. And the one that I get the most is why did you start the boat? Or how do you deal with this? I get that one quite a bit too. And I started the lifeboat because being addicted to a substance so much that substance owns your life is hell on earth. It is. It's hell on earth. I hated the drug dealer. I hated him more than anything. It was the embodiment of everything evil in my mind. I didn't realize that at the time. That's looking back through the lens of reality. But I hated them. But I would wait for them forever. And they say, I'll meet you in 5 minutes. If they took 3 hours, I'd still be sitting there waiting for them. I'd be angry as hell. I'd be talking about beating the crap out of them when they got there. But then I would see the car and I would think, it's here. I'm not going to be sick anymore. Right? This pain's going to go away. I'll feel normal. No, I'm not going to lie to you. There were a few times where they really took a long time, where they just lied that, one too many times. And there was a few of them that I was not so good to. Or I didn't have money while I was waiting for them in the parking lot. That happens quite a bit. I robbed a lot of people. I am not a big believer of coincidences either. Paul Sargent, I am not a big believer in coincidence. Let me tell you guys a story about coincidence. I decided to get sober in prison. I don't know how many times before I met Q. Once I realized that this was, I'm in trouble. I can't do it. I can't keep doing it. And I was getting shipped to a new yard. So I hit a yard down by a wide family very near this prison who lived there. And they would come and see me every single weekend. And that is really good for your head. If you've got, you can give a family member a hug and sit down and eat with them, face to face. That does wonderful things for you if you're locked up. And I thought to myself, I could do the rest of my time here. Like, I could do the rest of my time here. This is not difficult time. And I did not use dope on that yard. I was only there for about 3 or 4 months. And I never once used dope on that yard. I was doing great. And then one day they called me to take a drug test. Pardon the French, but a piss test, right? That's the vernacular in prison. So I go and give them a urine sample. But you didn't do it in the unit. We used to do it at a place called the Metal Shack, which is exactly, it's not a clever name. It's a shack made of metal. It's actually quite a nice building, but they call it the Metal Shack. And you have to walk through it to go anywhere on the yard because it's just a bunch of metal detectors. But it's so that they can, and there's a bathroom in there. And there's also a television set because the cops are stuck there. So there's some really nice air conditioning. Well, they called down 9 guys for a random drug test. Mine, not so random. They called me down because everybody in the BOP, my file, everything screamed, this guy does dope. So, and I remember thinking to myself, this is probably the second time I've ever peed in a cup that I didn't have to worry about it. It's a bizarre feeling at that point in your life because I always had, a bag of water taped to the inside of my thigh, or I had just drank 5 gallons of water. I had a cellmate that used to use a catheter to put clean water up him so he could go and do, it's just amazing what people do in prison. Anyway, I give the guy my urine specimen, and there's a little sticker that you pull off, and then it shows you whether or not you passed or failed. So I passed. He sets it on top of the garbage can with 8 other people's on top of the garbage can. And we're good to go. I go back to my unit, blah, blah, blah. Later on that afternoon, I get called down to the lieutenant's office. He's like king guy on the yard. And he says to me, I'm here to serve you. That means I'm in trouble, right? I'm getting paperwork that says I have to go see a disciplinary hearing board or whatever. And I go, the hell are you serving me for? And he said, you failed the drug test. I said, the hell I did. I said, the hell I did. No. Well, at that time, nobody had failed it. I was standing, in the metal shack. I was the third person to pee. I said, man, I didn't fail that. And the proof is you have to sign a sticker that they affix to the top of your cup. You follow me? That proves it's your sample. So I said, I want to see my sample with my sticker on the top of it. Because this isn't me, man. This isn't my sample. And he says, I don't have to show you that. And he does have to show me that, right? Like that's Bureau of Prison policy. And every junkie knows Bureau of Prisons policies on drug tests because we take them all the time and we're looking for any angle that we can get out of trouble on. They broke every single rule. And then they sent me to the segregated housing unit, the shoe, the hole. And they sent me there anyway, where I proceeded to bitch and piss and moan for the next probably 6 months, waiting to get shipped to the next yard. And I have never been more angry. I felt like, man, I'm doing everything right. I'm doing everything right. And now I'm going to get sent off. And you see people come in. It was a very small yard. There's only like 1,000 people on it. And there was a dude from my unit who got brought in and he says to me, what are you in for? I said, I failed the drug test that day that we went down to the metal shack. And this cat says, oh, no. I said, why? What's up? He goes, I passed mine. He's like, and I'm telling you right now, I didn't pass mine. He said they probably got a bunch of cups mixed up. And he was going home in like 30 days. So he writes a big, long letter and tells them, I'll tell you what he failed for, right? I'll tell you every single chemical in his system because all I was told was that I failed. And it was just one of those things that I thought, this is injustice. They wouldn't listen to him. They left me in the hole. And then I get shipped to a new yard where my family isn't there. The support's not there. And I think, this sucks. I didn't do anything to deserve this. Third guy I met on that yard was Q. I got to that new yard I didn't want to go to. And I met the dude who was going to make it so that I wasn't just sober. I was sober and happy. And I'm not going to lie to you. That didn't take place the following day. That didn't take place for a hell of a long time. In fact, the first thing I did when I hit that yard was get high. True story. I walked into the unit and there was a guy in that unit that I had served time with at Lewisburg. And I met his eyes and he just nodded. I walked over and he goes, how long did they have you in the shoe before you got brought here? I said, 6 friggin' months. He said, where are you coming in from? Blah, blah, blah. He's like, I got papers, which is a term in prison that means you've got dope. He's like, I got papers. I'm like, you got 100 paper? He's like, yeah. I said, give me 2 or 3 of them. I'll take care of it later. And he did. And I was off to the races. But there's no coincidences. I needed to be on that yard. There wouldn't be a lifeboat. I wouldn't be sober. I needed to end up on that yard. So I got chipped off of the yard that I was at for doing absolutely nothing wrong. And it's a pretty decent life lesson because when you look back at the times of your life through the lens of the present, right? If I look at, I'm not answering my daughter's FaceTime. Oh, wow. Well, you know what? You do have a lot of family here, Hope. So maybe you're in the right place. That's a good thing. You absolutely can pick your family. You really can. And if you need this crew, then I'm glad you're here. And I'm sorry that it took a long time to get this up this morning. But the reality is when you start looking back and you're sober and you can look at the things that happened in your past, all of a sudden you go, boy, When I was going through that, I thought it was the worst thing that ever happened to me. Now I realize, hands down, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I look back now and I go, is it a coincidence that I failed that drug test? And of all of the prisons in the BOP, 127 of them. Now, to be honest, I was only eligible to go to about 20 because my points, there's a point system to determine how bad a guy you are. And my point system said I was one of the worst people. And it's not because of violence and stuff like that. It's because of drugs. How many times I failed a drug test? You get points for that. I want to say it's 3 points for failing a drug test. And the max that they can give you in the course of 1 year. So once you fail the second one, they're not giving you but 1 point for the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. And I still got enough points where I could never go to a normal yard. I cannot talk to her at the moment. The divorce, etc. I'm no use to her right now. I need to be here. You know what? Full of hope. The knowing that's I really wish that I had that I was that sharp all of the time. I most assuredly am not, but that's one of those things that that really is good. Coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous. Chris King, what a great, I have never heard that before. I have never heard that before. I have never heard that before. That is really one of the coolest things I've ever heard. Chris, you do that to me often. You really do. You do that to me often. Normally it has something to do with healthy stuff, So yeah, and I squirreled off, which is kind of if you're new to the lifeboat, that's the reason that my cat is called Squirrel, because my inability to follow a thread. You know what I mean? In theory, I should be talking about the nuts and bolts of sobriety. However, I'm not sharp, but I'm sober just for today. You only got to make it today, hon. That is the greatest part of this whole deal. Hello, Kylie Morrison. Good to see you. The best part is, full of hope, you only got to make it today. There's no pressure about doing it the rest of your life or any of that crap. And I know that there are people that hate the 1 day at a time thing. You know who the people who really hate the 1 day at a time thing? People who have never come to grips with what addiction is, what addiction means, either to them or to loved ones. I talked to somebody over the course of the beginning of this weekend, and they are the loved one of somebody that is on the boat. They are not somebody on the boat. They are the loved one of somebody on the boat. And they were coming on basically to yell at me. Or they asked if I would be willing to talk to them and warned me ahead of time that they were not very happy. And I said, sure. So I got on and I started talking to them. And here's what basically what her problem is. Her problem is that over the course of the entire day, about 3 hours of her significant other's life is being taken up by the lifeboat, because he apparently watches a morning video and a night video. And sometimes during the day, he will either 413 days. Congratulations. That's huge. That is huge. So I said to this person, so let me get this straight. You're pissed off because this guy who you love and you want in your life in the way that he used to be prior to getting addicted to drugs, you're bummed out that this guy is dedicating 3 hours a day to sobriety. And she said, yeah, that's pretty much it. She said, no, it's not sobriety. It's the lifeboat. And I'm like, well, that's, he's coming to the lifeboat because he wants to stay sober, and he would like to go someplace that doesn't have an entire group of people who are like you. And I'm not trying to be a jerk at all, but that's exactly why he's coming here 3 hours a day, so that he can be around people that understand what it means to struggle with an addiction. Because you're saying, I want my guy back, but if it's going to take 3 hours a day to get that guy back, I'm not sure that I want to do this anymore. And she said, no, that's not what I'm saying. Sadly, that is what she's saying. Sobriety is something that we do all of the time, every day. And sometimes you have to be able to say to somebody, you know what, I can't do this right now. I can't do this right now. What is taking place right now, this debate, this argument, this intense, great thing that's happening to me, whatever the case may be, I can't cope with this right now. This is overloading me. This happens to me really often. It really does. And more often than not, it's when I'm talking to somebody about sobriety. And I know that there's probably 4 or 5 people. No, we have a small crowd today because I went late. I'm sure there's at least 1 or 2 people on today that have heard me say, I'll get back to you. I just can't do this right now. I can't do it right now. Because what I need to do is get into the nuts and bolts of sobriety, because it's overwhelming. I'm dealing with my problems now, and I'm dealing with your problems now. And right before you called, I was dealing with somebody else's problems. So I go outside. I fill my lungs with air, good clean air. Not the sort of stagnant stuff. Like in my house right now, I keep this house very clean, but it smells like coffee, and fancy creamer, and usually Squirrel Nut Zipper, but she's not. A squirrel has no foul odor. You know what I mean? It's not like if you walked into my house, you wouldn't know that there was a cat. But squirrel definitely has a scent. She just kind of smells like an animal. All right, people, I'm going to keep talking, but my cat is locked in a bad position. This is the problem with Squirrel being in the garage. I appreciate your patience. If by some chance you have this on mute, probably not such a great thing. Come on, Squirrel. Come on, Ruby. Good girl. All right, so I know. Yeah, the problem with this morning when I came time to let Squirrel back in from the garage, she didn't want to come in. More than likely because she had a rodent somewhere cornered. This is something that you may not believe, but this is the truth. I have figured out. Took a while to figure out, but I have figured out that Squirrel does not kill the mice. I kid you not. She killed the first one, right? The first one that she played with, she killed. And then there was another one about a week later. But I have gone out there while she's playing with a mouse and doing her little thing, probably 4 times. And she plays with it. And then when she gets bored of it, instead of like crunching it and doing what other cats do, she just comes back in here. I swear to you, I think there's only one left, and she just terrorizes this one poor mouse every single time she wants to play or do anything else. Come here, Squirrel. She's trying to find her catnip mouse. Yes, my cat has a habit. The other day, when she couldn't find her catnip mouse, she got into the closet. As I've told you, I have doors that have the handles like this that you just push down. Squirrel can open them. If I'm patient, someday I'm going to film it and it's going to go viral, because she stands on the back of her feet and she jumps up and grabs onto the the handle. And when it finally pops down, she's able to get into where the snacks and everything else are kept. But that's where I kept a little bag of like 6 catnip toys. And when I came downstairs, they were everywhere. Like there was one on the table. There was a couple on the floor. She had like stashing them all over the house. Yeah, like a live toy. That's what she does. Usually they will kill the thing by accident in their exuberance. But she doesn't do that. Yeah, barn cats weren't fed. She says, yeah, that that's the way it was in Vermont. There were a lot of barns that, would be filled with cats, and they would just go hunting and do what they do. And in that case, they would eat that. But Squirrel knows that all she's got to do is come back inside, and there's going to be like, at any given time, Squirrel's got 2 or 3 kinds of food. I rotate stuff because she is a snob. And then cans of tuna. She gets a can of tuna 2 or 3 times a week. And then there's like 3 or 4 different TREATS I say that way and she's going to go nuts because she's learned what that means. She's looking for one right now in the little pedestal that I give her all of those things in because she assumes there's got to be at least some crumbs up there because I've been feeding her in it for I don't know how long. Now she'll come over here and start meowing. That's the way this goes. So I'm really sorry because I squirreled off once again in the but what I was talking about is I talk to people all the time and I get to a point where I got to jam on the brakes. And you got to do that in life. You got to do that in life no matter what you do. It's a lot more glaring if you're if what you do requires interaction every day. And I mean a lot of it. Because even the I'm sorry. I'm having everything just went boom, came back up. Never used to happen to me. It's a really bizarre feeling. But so if you're somebody that if you work with your hands and you work alone, right? But even in the watch business, I spend half of my day talking to people and explaining things. And so communication is the backbone of every single thing that I do. It really is one of those things that, if you're doing this all day, every day, you're going to get overwhelmed. Get outside, go for a walk, change what you're looking at, what you're smelling, change everything, right? Walk, run. The beautiful thing about going outside and going for a walk, people say, man, it's almost like your only advice. You know what? Most people can get through with just that advice. I kid you not. To get you to a safe place. And then you got to journal because that's peeling the onion, right? You're going to peel the onion and get to what is causing the symptom of the problem. The symptoms are the drugs. The problem is something that's making you really uncomfortable in your own body, making you really uncomfortable being in your own skin. That's what it comes right down to. However, if you feel like you're going to use the only trick in the book that you really need, and I go over a bunch of them, but the only trick in the book you need is getting the hell out of where you are. What's stressing you out? Oh, I'm in the middle of a conversation with somebody that I went to high school with, and so the conversation's stressing you out. Stop it. Hey, you know what? Gotta run. Really? You okay? No, not so much. I'm a drug addict. And I'm sober and you're threatening it. This conversation is threatening my sobriety. So I'm going to jam the brakes on and I'm going to get out of the room I'm in because now the room, the four walls that I'm looking at, they now have basically taken on a new form. Now I look at the walls and everything in the room threatens my sobriety. Everything has my brain going in the wrong direction. Why would that be? Because as I start tumbling down the rabbit hole of ants crawling all over my brain, I'm looking at these things, right? I'm noticing everything on the wall. And now as my eyes go back to it, I'm reliving early moments of this collapse that's telling me to go use. I got to get out of this room, right? I got to get out of this room quickly. And that's just what I do. I get up, I stop whatever the hell I'm doing, and I walk outside. Well, it's a lot easier said than done, Tommy. What if you're in a room of 10 people? I have had that happen. I can't tell you how many times. True story. I told you people recently that we got some funding to do some cool stuff. There's some people that would like to fund the lifeboat and really kind of take this to an even bigger place, right? And I think that that's really cool. Ah, there she is. Don't step on the keyboard again. Please, squirrel. Come here. Good girl. So that is a very cool concept. But in the middle of a meeting with this person and three other people, I went, I'm in a bad place, man. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, my head. Like this is causing me, squirrel, come on. This is causing me to be very concerned about my own sobriety. And that is not something that I take lightly. In fact, it's something that I take very, very seriously. So what I'm going to need you to do is just hang out a little bit. I'm going to walk outside. I just need to change my environment for a little bit. That is a cat chewing on my finger. Makes her really happy. I'm not sure why. Hey, be a nice cat. Nuts and bolts stuff. Get outside. Now, as you walk down the road, you're not looking at the same thing. Even if you saw it yesterday, even if you're walking by the same signpost, it doesn't work like that outside. Why? Because it's not something you look at 6 hours a day. You sit in the living room, you're looking at the same four walls 6 hours a day. It changes a person. You don't think it does? Trust and believe. Squirrel, don't. Trust and believe. It changes a person. It's why guys go nuts in the joint. It really is. As human beings, we are not intended to stare at the same four walls for 15 years of our life. In fact, we're not supposed to stare at the same color walls, right? Monochromatic. Everything in the place is one color. Everybody wears the exact same color. The first time you leave a prison, if you've been down for any length of time, you walk into a mall and you see all of the clothes that people are wearing and your head will spin like you're doing drugs. I remember I literally went from prison to a mall. And the reason was I had gone to state prison. So they picked me up right at the gate and we were going to a relative's birthday party. And I had a little cash from working in prison. I mean, a very little cash. I think the gate money was $28. But I wanted to go and buy her something at the mall. And I walked in and said, I can't do this. This is over friggin' whelming. I mean, that was kind of an irrelevant thing because I didn't make it very long anyway. But I mean, I wasn't saying that in terms of sobriety. I was saying that in terms of falling down. You're chewing on a chair. This is my cat. She's pretty bright, isn't she? What the heck are you doing? Come here. Come here, genius. I think she's trying to either sharpen her teeth or just drive me nuts. I pray while walking, full of hope. I pray while walking. And sometimes I'll be on a walk and something will hit me. And I'll think to myself, you know what? I wish I hadn't said, I wish I had done this as a topic on the lifeboat, or I wish that I had worded something this way. And half the time I'll be walking, we have 18 miles of walking path, and I'll be walking down that thing for all intents and purposes, doing a lifeboat to nobody, talking to myself, pep talking myself. This is something that is very real. It's very real. Full of Hope says today she's a dry drunk. And you understand that concept, right? It's what we call white knuckling it. You know, you're super unhappy, and the only thing that's keeping you sober is willpower and the grace of God. And what I would say is this: automatic negative thoughts. We have between 40 to 60,000 thoughts a day. That's what goes through our head. 40 to 60,000 thoughts a day. Those are unique thoughts going from one to the next, depending on the person, but they say between 40 and 60,000. That's remarkable, isn't it? I mean, it really is. If you divide the number of hours in a day, and by the way, they're counting the time you're asleep because our brains are still working. So what you want to do is, people, the cognitive decline in the brain is absolutely terrifying to me. It really is. It's absolutely terrifying to me. Every time I do one of these little asides where